Thanks, Daniel. This morning I'd like to put a slightly provocative idea on the table. I'd like to suggest that the new Colombo Plan has achieved most of the structural change that it's likely to achieve within the Australian university sector under the NCP's existing policy settings, which is fine if the Australian government is satisfied with what it's currently achieving. However, if the government is interested in seeing a different configuration of outcomes from the NCP, then some adjustment of its settings is required. So I'd like to illustrate where we were in 2019 before the pandemic after 6 years of the new Colombo Plan. In 2019, according to the 2018-19 budget papers, the Australian government spent $51 million on the new Colombo Plan. In the same year, according to the AUIDF, just over 58,000 Australian university students undertook a learning abroad experience. Of these, 15,500 were Indo-Pacific based experiences undertaken by domestic undergraduate students, the target cohort for the NCP. Now, of these, 3,000 were experiences of less than 2 weeks duration. Another 8,000 were experiences of 2 to 4 weeks duration. And approximately 1,600 or 10% were domestic undergraduates on a semester of study in the Indo-Pacific. A further 154 were students on a full year of study in the Indo-Pacific, and these were likely NCP scholars. So to recap, in 2019, in the 6th year of the NCP, the Australian government spent $51 million on the new Colombo Plan. 15,500 domestic undergraduates went up to the Indo-Pacific, and about 1,800, just over 11%, did so for a semester or longer. And it's these 1,800 students that I want to talk about for a bit. Now, averaging this figure out across Australia's 42 universities, in 2019, we had an average of 40 domestic undergraduate students per university on Indo-Pacific experiences of a semester or longer. What are the objectives of the NCP? They are, according to the 2024 guidelines, an increased number and diversity of Australian uni graduates with Indo-Pacific capability, deeper people-to-people and institutional relationships between Australia and the Indo-Pacific, and students and alumni connected with leaders in government, business and civil society in the Indo-Pacific. In November 2022, in an article published by the Lowy Institute, the Institute's Southeast Asia Program Director, Dr. Susanna Patton, wrote, "The impact of the NCP in improving Australia's relationships with Southeast Asia is almost certainly low. The overwhelming majority of students receiving funding under the scheme are recipients of mobility grants, which fund only short-term placements or travel. Qualitative academic research on the experiences of students travelling to Indonesia for short-term placements indicates that while short-term study tours may be thought-provoking, they are unlikely to forge enduring connections to the country. The government should reshape the new Colombo Plan to focus more on long-term study opportunities to ensure that it is meeting its original goal of strengthening Australia's relationships with countries in the broader Indo-Pacific." Now, to my mind, this is the criticism of a foreign policy specialist, a non-higher education professional who's broadly supportive of the objectives of the NCP, but a little bit disillusioned at what the scheme is actually delivering. If the NCP is to maintain its political licence, its claim over $50 million of annual public funding, I think that we, the Australian Learning Abroad sector and DFAT, should give some thought to insulating the NCP against criticism of the sort expressed in this 2022 article from the Lowy Institute. So, with that in mind, what would it take to double over the next 5 years the 1,800 domestic undergrads that we had nationally in 2019, so that by 2029 we have instead 3,600 domestic undergrads nationally studying abroad in the Indo-Pacific for a semester or more? One of the answers, and the idea that I'd like to put on the table today, is curriculum embedded pathways to a semester in the Indo-Pacific. UTS's Bachelor of International Studies celebrates its 30th anniversary this year. It's a flexible add-on program that can be added to over 25 existing undergrad degree programs. A combined BIS degree is usually 2 years longer than a single degree to allow for language and cultural studies and up to 1 year abroad. During the period 2017 to 2019, between 50 to 70 UTS BIS students annually studied abroad in China and Japan for a semester or longer. This represents approximately 4% of the total number of Australian undergraduates undertaking long duration Indo-Pacific learning abroad during this period. ANU's Semester in Asia, Year in Asia program is the ANU College of Asia and the Pacific's flagship program for overseas study. The program is open to students enrolled in Bachelor of Arts, Asian Studies, Development Studies, International Relations, International Security Studies, Languages and Science. The program saw 75 to 100 ANU students annually undertaking semester or full year learning abroad in the Indo-Pacific during the same 3-year period, 2017 to 2019, and constituting approximately 6% of the national cohort doing so during the 3 years prior to the pandemic. So that's 2 Australian universities punching well above the national average of 40 domestic undergrad students per uni on semester and full year Indo-Pacific experiences, between them accounting for about 10% of the annual national undergrad cohort on such experiences by virtue of having clear, well-maintained curriculum-embedded pathways to a semester or longer in the Indo-Pacific. So, what would it take to achieve the structural change required within the Australian higher education system? New dedicated degree structures with curriculum-embedded pathways to a semester in the Indo-Pacific, not at 2 universities, but at 42 Australian universities. NCPMP plus funding would be provided to Australian universities or faculties therein on a contingent per student basis upon demonstration of successful placement of an Australian student in the Indo-Pacific for at least a trimester or semester. This top-up funding would be provided outside of the Department of Education's Commonwealth Grant Scheme in a similar fashion to other current Australian government top-up funding targeting small national cohorts of domestic students to address specific national priorities. For example, the Department of Health's Strengthening Australia's Mental Health System initiative, which has allocated $90 million over 5 years to Australian unis for the creation of new postgraduate psychology places. And the Department of Defence's Expanding Australia's Sovereign Workforce Capability for the Australian Nuclear Powered Submarine Program, which has allocated $129 million over 4 years to fund the creation of 4,000 additional Commonwealth supported places in courses that support the Department's Nuclear Powered Submarine Program. So far, 16 Australian unis have signed up to receive this funding and to deliver these courses. Under NCPMP+, a domestic student undertaking a semester in the Indo-Pacific would receive the same $10,000 mobility grant that they're currently receiving under the NCP mobility program's existing settings. However, the student's home university, Australian University, would also receive $5,000 in top-up institutional funding per student at a total cost to DFAT and the NCP of $15,000 per Indo-Pacific semester experience. Under these settings, a university faculty sending the 2019 national average of 40 domestic undergrad students a year to the Indo-Pacific for a semester would receive $200,000 in NCPMP plus institutional funding. A faculty sending 80 students a year would receive $400,000 in institutional funding. NCPMP plus funding for universities would cost DFAT $9 million in 2025, rising to $21 million in 2029, and would provide for a doubling in the annual number of Australian university students undertaking semester or full year learning abroad in the Indo-Pacific within 5 years, from the current 2019 baseline of 1,800 students to 3,600 students in 2029. That's it. That's my idea, and I look forward to the Q&A.